Hello and welcome to the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson. The Local Leaders Podcast provides a platform for successful business owners to share their stories, their experiences, their advice, and their ideas in order to help our listeners achieve more success in their business and in their lives. Get ready, another great show is coming up. Good afternoon, it's Jeff Johnson with the Local Leaders Podcast, and I am excited today to be talking to Laurie Torres, and she's going to tell me how to slur or roll my R's here in just a moment, who has a wonderful restaurant in Cleveland, Ohio called Mallorca. I can't roll that R either, but she can do it so beautifully, and we're so happy to have you on today, Laurie. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, my friend. I am honored to be here to chat with you.
Well, we are honored, and I talked over you right from the get-go, so I'm going to have to do better. Well, as I said, Mallorca is in downtown Cleveland, and Laurie will correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm going to just open up the mic and give her a moment just to share kind of her story and tell us all a little bit about how she got started and the concept and everything that makes Mallorca special. Laurie, it's all yours.
All right, my friend. Well, Mallorca is actually a 25-year-old downtown restaurant. It's considered a legacy restaurant at this point. We brought the Spanish cuisine into Cleveland when no one had ever had Spanish cuisine. And it was when we first opened, named Forbes' hottest seat in Cleveland. And we started out 4-hour waits, which was very interesting because we were in an area of Cleveland called the Warehouse District, which at the point was not that popular of a district. But what happens when one place is successful, then other places hear and they decide that they're going to open up in that same area. So we really are a big part of the Warehouse District. And sometimes I say, reluctantly, I feel like the grandmother of the Warehouse District. But if anybody else says that, I'll be really mad at them. But I'm we started the restaurant. I bought the restaurant actually for my husband, who is a Gallego from Spain. A Gallego is a person from Northwest Spain. It was his dream to have a Spanish restaurant. And then I kind of went off my merry way to practice my mediation that I did. And then 6 years ago, for lack of a better way to say it, I took over the restaurant because he decided that he liked the bartender better than me.
Oh, you never know what you're going to get on the Local Leaders Podcast.
He left, and the restaurant was $300,000 in debt, and we were being evicted. So we've spent the last 6 years rebuilding the relationships that we had and rebuilding the restaurant, and we are now down Cleveland's most awarded restaurant, and we're rocking and rolling. And I'm so proud that I have the wonderful staff that I have, and so honored to be charged with taking care of this gem in the city.
Well, that is a fantastic voyage that you've been on, and both personally and professionally. And that's a whole nother conversation about kind of managing that work and life balance, or trying to find balance. And you mentioned your mediation as well, which is something that I'd love to talk about, because I believe that you've incorporated some of your many talents and brought that into the restaurant as well. So maybe we'll certainly try to touch on that today. But you started with a bad situation, about to be evicted. Things were just not where they needed to be. So tell us, how did you kind of turn it around? What did you do first?
Well, I think my first instinct was to just say, no, I'm not doing this. This is not where I intended to be in my life, and I'm not going to do this. And I have to be honest. And the reason I say this is because it's very important, because of the success of the restaurant, is that I had initially said, I'm not doing this. And I went down and I met the staff. And the staff had been there for 20 years or 15 years at that point. And I looked them in the eye and I thought, how, and I'm sorry I get so emotional about it, but I thought, how do you say no to these beautiful people who have been part of this house for 15 years and gave their life to it? And so it was looking into their face and seeing their loyalty and their commitment to the place that made me say, okay, I'm going to do this. And so I gave up my career to go and do this. It was not easy. There were many tears, many days hiding in my office crying because, like I said, we were $300,000 in debt. We were being evicted. We had no credit. We had no relationship with anyone. And it was a challenge. But I think that I'm a badass chick, so to speak.
Yes,
And
you are.
sometimes you throw challenges, and that's the most exciting thing is the challenge itself. And so I can tell you that building a business is a lot easier than rebuilding a business because you kind of are starting from negative, and that's difficult. But it was a lot of renegotiating debt. It was settling lawsuits, and it was really creating relationship with vendors, recreating relationship with the media, with local, politicians. That was very important. So I can say, without a doubt, that the key to building, or even more importantly, rebuilding a relationship or a business, is relationship building. It's all about relationship building with the customers, with your local, your vendors, your local politicians, with everyone. It's really those personal relationships that will create a successful business and sometimes even rescue one.
Well, that's amazing advice, because that's important in everything that we do, certainly. And I was thinking about your vendor relationships, and maybe even the city and town politicians who all have a vested interest in your success, or not, or lack of success. And then you mentioned the all important customers. So not only did you had to fix both ends. You had to fix the financial side to get everybody happy there, and then you had to go out and you had to re-educate and rebuild those relationships with your customers so that they understood things were changing as well. Because I expect your customer relationships had probably gone in the wrong direction during that time as well. Is that fair to say?
I think that it's, when I talk to people, because now that I've been doing this for 5-6 years, when I talk to people who are struggling, I always tell them, you have to be there. Don't think that you can start a business. And I know the restaurant business, I've had a mediation business, I've had a real estate business, I've had children's publication. You have to be there. This industry more than anything, because if you're not there, then your employees and your customers don't think you're committed. And why should they commit if you don't commit? So I go to this day, there is rarely a table that comes in that I don't go and talk to them, get to know who they are, make them feel special, because that's really what the hospitality industry is about. It's not just about feeding people. It's about making people feel special. It's about saying, hey, you come here. I'm not just going to feed you. I'm going to make sure that you feel like this is your second home, that you are special to us. Now, that might not be true at a drive-through or a quick casual place where people are just going for food. But when you're looking at fine dining, people are looking for that feeling when they leave, that they are special. And what makes them feel very special is to know, hey, I know the owner, who I don't even call myself the owner. I just call myself the host. I'm your host. This is my Spanish home, and you are part of my family. And that's crucial. And in order to do that, you have to be there. You can't expect your staff to show the commitment if you don't do that. And you certainly can't expect your customers to feel a commitment to your business if you don't have it.
Well, that's certainly great advice, and one that speaks to that individual who wants to have, or thinks he or she wants to have, a wonderful, authentic restaurant wherever they may live, but they just want to invest the money and let somebody else run it. And that, for some people and some businesses, maybe that works. But you don't see that every day, and I think your commitment is commendable, and certainly is attributable to the success that you've had, and you've been able to bring Mallorca back from almost its deathbed to being a fantastic destination now in the warehouse district. And even talking about the warehouse district, it sounds like that was an older maybe part of town that wasn't well spoken of. It reminds me of a place I lived a few years ago in Virginia that had a district very similar, and it was also called the Warehouse District, and they actually rebranded it and made it the River District because, of course, the river ran right along. And from that point forward, the town or city invested money in rebuilding some of the old warehouses and turning them into lofts. And then the next thing you know, you had restaurants popping up. It was maybe something very similar to what's happened there in Cleveland. I don't know, but it sounds like a similar story.
Well, I think it's important too. I mean, I tell the staff all the time that, we are at this point 25 years old. And when you have a 25-year-old restaurant in a district like the Warehouse District, you are kind of a destination. And because you're a destination, you represent more than just yourself. At this point, we are more than just Cleveland. I mean, more than Mallorca. We are Cleveland. There are oftentimes people come to Cleveland just to come to Mallorca. So I always tell the guys, when you are waiting on a table, when you are caring for our customer family, you are oftentimes the only thing they'll see about the Warehouse District or about Cleveland. So you have to put your best foot forward, not just for yourself, but for this beautiful city that's allowed us to be part of it for 25 years, and very much for the Warehouse District. And we try to kind of look at the Warehouse District and look at how they're trying to brand themselves, and we try to fit into that brand. So that's crucially important as well for a business, is that, when you're choosing a location for your business, when you're trying to be a part, you are part of the community that you're in. And so you need to know about the brand. I look at it all the time. How is the Warehouse District trying to brand themselves? What is it that they want to be in the community? And then I try to pattern Mallorca after that so that we fit into that community, and we create something that's larger than just ourselves.
That is so well spoken, Laurie. That is very important for any business, I think, and especially those with the ties and the long-term component that you guys have had and with your success. So I applaud you there as well. It's an amazing story and an amazing restaurant. It's when I look at your reviews and your menu and everything that's online, oh God, just makes me hungry right out of the gate, which is important. But as you said, you're also a destination, and the point I wanted to come back to is you talked about when teaching or training your staff as to how important that interaction is when guests visit Mallorca. Can you share a little bit about maybe how you do go about with your training regime with current and again, you probably got some staff that's been there 20 years or more, so that's a different story. But can you just tell us a little bit about that, and maybe also how the mediation piece you work that in with your
So
business?
I have to say that's probably one of the challenges that we have right now. I'm sure that you hear this from many businesses, but I think particularly in the restaurant industry, and I'll just step back a little bit and tell you that, we had a meeting at the restaurants of the Ohio Restaurant Association last week at Mallorca, and we were talking about with local leaders and local politicians. They were talking about, are we back to where we were in 2019? And my comment was, we can't look at ourselves in terms of ever being back to 2019, because there's been a monumental shift in the way that people think about their lives since COVID. COVID has really made people reevaluate their work, home life balance. And because of that, we are finding that we're having a hard time finding employees. And I'm sure this is true of everyone, but the restaurants, the service industry is particularly difficult work. It's hard work. And before we had the kind of tip derivation where we could say, well, it's hard work, but for a frontline worker who's a busser, you can make $25 an hour, where you couldn't do that in other places. But that kind of separation in income is not as grand as it once was, as other sectors of the economy are offering more and more money because they're also suffering from shortages. And as a result, I feel like for us, shortages in staffing is going to last a lot longer, because people are going, wow, why would I go kill myself at a restaurant for 10 hours a day, standing on my feet and putting up with crabby people, when I could go full sweaters at Marshall's for almost the same amount of money for 8 hours. So that's a challenge. So when it comes to get back to what you're saying with training, it's hard right now, because when you do, luckily, if you're lucky, find someone, training is difficult because you're just so busy at the working that the ability to have, you almost are at the point where you need to go, I need you to hit the ground running. And training is like something that is a luxury that we really can't afford at this point, because we need everyone to kind of hit the ground running. So that's a difficult situation we're in. But obviously, if you talk about training in general, you do, I am so beyond fortunate because I have the absolute most wonderful staff. It is a blessing for me to work with them every single day. And like you said, many of them have been with me 20, 25 years. And so pairing, for me, I need to pair people with them. So, I have one of my employees going on vacation for a week. And I said, my God, he's like one of those people that he goes on vacation for a week and you need 4 people to replace him. But I want to pattern the new employees after. That's who I want to pattern the employees after. And just one other comment is the skills that I learned as a mediator for many years have been so beyond useful in this industry, because it's all about conflict resolution and de-escalating a situation. And boy, I'll tell you, I have never worked in an industry where people get more pissed off about something so minute than food. There's times you just want to go, dude, it's a steak, relax. No one's dying here.
Yeah. Yes, you do. But of course that's not the response you would have to give them, right?
Not. You have to be, so those mediation skills and those ability to kind of recognize a situation and de-escalate that is something that the staff and I talk about all the time. And I have such a great staff that I never wanted to get to the point where they have to talk to me, where the customers have to talk to me. I want them to have those skills themselves so that they can de-escalate situations all on their own. But I'm so beyond blessed. They're amazing people.
Well, that's fantastic, and it's you're in a great position to have those experienced people. And as you said, staffing is a significant challenge industry wide. And I have been asking and kind of focusing on that in some of our other podcasts, to creative ways, to go out and find staffing, and they're just hard to come by.
Well, it's not. I think that it's interesting because in this industry, and I apologize if I'm just yapping on here.
No, please.
But in this industry, there's always been this sense of like, well, you're just a waiter, or you're just a server, or you're just a busser. And we really can't do it that way anymore. We really have to think about the people that work for us, particularly in a small business like the restaurant industry, like something small like my restaurant. I have to think of those people more as my partners. And I have to think in terms of how can I get them to buy in to the restaurant as much as I have? And we may have to start thinking in terms of not just increasing salaries, because that doesn't really keep people on board, but doing things like profit share. If I make money, they make money. And I do that now. If I have a really good weekend, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm handing out money on Monday to the staff, because if I have a good weekend, I want them to have a good weekend. And I know that if I have a good weekend, it's because they're so amazing and they made it a great weekend. So I think in terms of, that's one creative way that employers are going to have to stop thinking in terms of, I'm the boss and you're the employee and I should make more money than you do. I think you have to think in terms of, we're all in this together. It's a partnership. We're all shoveling the coal that keeps this train running. We should all benefit from it when it arrives when it gets to its arrival.
Well, I think that's a terrific way to approach it. And, from the longevity of your staff and lack of turnover, it seems like that definitely would work. And I love the idea of, and I just made a note, no employees, only partners. And that approach is sometimes difficult for restaurant owners to take, because, they are the boss. It is your money. It is your place. But as you said, the kind of the mental concept of feeling like it's part yours is what makes it so special to those employees and helps you retain them, and of course attract them as well. But that enables them to better serve your clientele or your customers. And that approach, again, you don't see it every day, but I think it's a novel way to look at it. We do have to change what we've done. The COVID virus, as you said, transformed the business. And speaking of that, I mean, how has the off-premises component of Mallorca, how has that changed since COVID?
In terms of, I'm not clear on what you're asking.
Okay, yeah, like the takeout, delivery, curbside, all that kind of stuff. Before you were probably significantly dining
Sure.
in.
We are, and we have increased the takeout. It was interesting over COVID you realize that when something like that happens, you have to think creatively. You have to think in terms of, I can't do business the way that I always have. You can't, you couldn't, or you weren't going to survive. And the restaurants that did survive, and the businesses that did survive, were people that did things differently. One of the things that I did during COVID was, we're a downtown restaurant. During COVID, downtown restaurants got hit harder than most restaurants did, because we were dealing not just with COVID, but then we also were dealing with the civil unrest of the Black Lives movement, and things like that. So because our restaurant is unique, I started calling and partnering with apartment complexes and neighborhood communities. And I would call them and say, look, I know how everyone's probably sick of eating the food that's in their 8-mile DoorDash or Uber Eats or Grubhub radius. How about if I make a small menu, and on one night I will bring everyone food from Mallorca, and you can eat something different. So I would create, 2 or 3 things. And every single time that I did that, I called the community. I said, this is something that you're doing for the residents of your community. That's something different. And it's something that's going to help me. And so every single time that I did that, within 15 minutes, I would get like 40 orders. So I would load up 40 orders of food in one night, take them all out to one apartment complex or one neighborhood community, stand there with my truck, hand the food out, and make $4,000. Those are the kind of things that helped us survive, because it's more than just delivering one meal at a time. It's thinking of creative ways that they want what I have. How can I get it to them in a way that works for both of us? And obviously, I'm not going to deliver one meal in 50 different places, but I can deliver 50 meals to one place. So those kind of things, partnering, we partnered with the university hospitals to provide food for the nursing staff, because they were working a lot. So those kind of partnerships were important. The problem is now that we're getting back kind of coming out of COVID is that um, we kind of have a whole nother range of problems in the sense that a lot of people got used to that. I get my food to go kind of thing. And I have to refocus my energy on we are fine dining and we want to service the people that are in the house. And even to go has really, it helped us through COVID. It's now kind of a hindrance because I don't like to take time away from the kitchen or from the staff to provide to go food when people come in for the Mallorca experience of being there. So it's kind of created that, that we have more to go, but we're kind of like, it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time.
Yeah, well, that makes total sense. You kind of train the masses and as you were talking about, delivering 50 meals to one place, it's almost like you created a pop-up restaurant, in different parts of town or communities, and that's creative thinking at its best, to find a way to succeed. But then, as you said, now it's gotten to where we want to get back to where we're best, which is providing that destination, fine dining destination in downtown Cleveland. And it's hard because now we've got customers who want us to continue to do that takeout piece. So it'll be interesting to see, how that goes and continues, whether you continue to try to balance it or really get back to your basics or your core. As you've had these last 6 years, you've been from one extreme to the other. Are there any thoughts or plans with Mallorca in terms of expansion ever? Are you ever looking to take it elsewhere? Just curious.
Tell you that there was actually one day that I had 3 people come in with legitimate offers to buy the restaurant, expand the restaurant. I have people that are longtime customers that are, hey, because we have customers from all over the place. For India, we actually had a table come in just last month, and they were talking. They said, I want you to know that how we heard about your restaurant is we were in Ireland having dinner, and there was a table next to us at the same restaurant, and those people were talking about, oh my God, if you ever want a good, and I can't even remember what you have to go to Mallorca restaurant in Cleveland. And so they're like, here, we're from California, we were in Ireland, and we couldn't wait to come to Cleveland to come to your restaurant.
That's crazy.
Very far, but we do have people from all over. Please open a Mallorca here and open a Mallorca there. And I have thought about it. I am very tired. I do try to do more. I'm trying to do more catering now. I'm thinking about maybe doing a food truck and kind of calling it Spanish street food. There are expansion possibilities. There have been for a long time. It's just right now it's difficult because I'm not only the employer, I'm also my employee. And there's weekends that I'm the dishwasher, and weekends I'm almost always the bartender. And until we can get the whole staffing situation turned around, it's going to be difficult to even think about that, just because there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah. And I remember our first conversation had been, I think it was a Monday following a weekend where you were the prime lead dishwasher due to staffing issues. So I do remember that. And that does make it difficult. It's hard to grow when you can't find staffing to serve. You would have to recreate Mallorca somewhere else, which is, 25 years of tradition. So that is a challenge as well.
We're famous for some of our dish. We're very famous for our sangria. It's an award-winning sangria. So I think when we're talking about expansion, you traditionally think about restaurants expanding in terms of taking the same kind of restauranting and putting it in a different location. And that's not the only way you can expand. You can take things that are successful in your business, like our sangria, and I can say, hey, let me partner with somebody who will bottle the sangria, and I can sell this sangria. Let me dry the sangria fruit and see if I can, sell the dried sangria fruit. Let me partner with maybe Stofers or somebody like that who will take some of our dishes and put them on the market for me. So there's ways to expand that you have to be creative and not just think like expansion means opening another Mallorca somewhere, but instead taking the best parts of your business and creating and expanding those into different kinds of market that maybe you wouldn't think about.
That is wonderful, a wonderful idea, and something that I don't think everybody thinks about, because as you said, when you think of growing, you think of number of units, especially when you get into the corporate side of the restaurant industry. It's, how many units you got. I mean, it's always all about that. But as you said, if you've got something special, you've got something extraordinary, why not put it out in a different way? Find a different mechanism or a different media to be able to get that out on. And I think that's great advice. I talked recently to a gentleman in California who his restaurant it's a smaller type of location. The footprint's very small. They make one item. And I said, boy, you really got to be good when your menu is one. They've got one food and one drink. So actually, you just gave me an idea that I need to share with him. And Umesh, if you're listening, there it is. We need to take some of that. And his food he's an Indian, has Indian food, Indian street food, as a matter of fact. And so that's a great idea for many, many others out there to think broadly and think outside the box and try to find new ways to generate revenue that won't make you work 24/7. Which you're already doing in most cases.
I think what people who are business people is that the two ways to be most successful, I think, in business are to step off your own ego, because it's not about you. And people tend to think like, well, if I have 10 restaurants, that makes me the and in town, and that makes my ego bigger, and that strokes my ego. Step off that ego. Your ego doesn't matter. And I think, don't be so greedy. If it's all just about money, then you might get more money, but that's not a long-term recipe for success. It really isn't. It's, again, like I said with my staff, if I'm greedy, I'm going to pay them the minimum amount that I can, and I'm going to keep the most that I can. But that's a long-term recipe for disaster, because I'm not going to staff long if they feel like I'm only just about the money. And the people, your customers and your partners and the people in the community, they will know that what you're about, so I think that's very important.
Well, that's another piece of great wisdom, and I love that. Check your ego at the door, right? If you're going to be a restaurateur, and there are those out there that advice would be great advice for. Hey, let me ask you this. I know I've had you now for about 40 minutes. I'm using up your day of not being open.
That's okay. I'm enjoying that time with you.
Well, it's a pleasure to speak with you as well, and I can't wait for our listeners to be able to listen in and learn kind of some of these great ideas. And I was just thinking of, I've got to find a way to kind of tag certain sections of these recordings so that people can do searches and look for different things and be able to find this content. So you got me thinking about some different things as well. But I would ask you, I asked a gentleman earlier today, and I thought it was a good question, but if you were, and this is off the cuff, but if you were starting a restaurant today and looking to be successful, what do you think are 2 or 3 of the most important components to focus on? Is it the marketing? Is it the branding? Is it the food? Is it the staff? Where would you put your attention?
Well, I think that honestly, so many restaurants fail, and the reason that they fail is because they may have the best food in the city, and they may have the best service in the city, but if no one knows you're there, it doesn't really matter. So I think that it is crucial that, first of all, when you're going to offer something, that you find something you make a restaurant that is something different. You figure out what it is about your restaurant, your business in general, that makes you unique. Whether that's one dish, whether that's the way that you serve, whatever it is, you have to figure out what it is about your restaurant that makes you unique, that stands out. Then you have to create relationships in the media. You have to create relationships in that community so that when you do something or when you open, you create this buzz, and that's all marketing. But it's not just marketing. Is not just. I used to always tell my kids, marketing is. I won't even say.
This is the internet. You can say what you want.
Marketing is kissing butt without leaving lip marks.
I love that one. I love it. I'm going to get that one on paper, and I might use it again.
And what I mean by that is it's about creating relationships. It's not just calling all the magazines in town and putting an ad in, calling all the news media and it's not just that. It's creating relationships with the people at those magazines so they can help you through what kind of ad, what is it that's different. It's really creating relationships are crucial with the media, with the people. It's not just, don't just go and blanket the city with a bunch of ads, because that doesn't really do anything. We know from studies that have been done with places like Destination Cleveland and things like that, the number one marketing tool is word of mouth. Word of mouth. And so you don't get word of mouth by blanketing the city with advertisements. You get word of mouth by making something that is different and then creating a buzz around that and creating relationships. And so then those relationships, those people so other people tell other people tell other people. So, that for me is, I've seen many restaurants fail again that are excellent food, excellent service, but they think the key to marketing or the key to selling themselves is just putting ads in everything. And that's just not, it. And I think also you have to really believe in what you're doing, because that message will be there. You have to be there, and you have to really, really believe in what you're doing and really love what you're doing.
And we can tell, Laurie, that you really love and are passionate about what you do, which has made Mallorca so successful, and gotten you from where you were 6 years ago to where you are today. And I know everybody's excited about it. What else? Any other words of wisdom, pieces of advice, ideas, strategies that I haven't asked you about that maybe you thought of and want to share? I know that really puts you on the spot, doesn't it? And
go ahead.
I was going to say, and we can edit that out if it doesn't work.
Well, I don't know any more strategies. I would say that probably the most important thing is know what the people that you work with are good at, and put those people in those places. So if you have somebody who is an excellent entertainer type, like say a server, like I have Enrique is from Cuba. I call him dinner and a show because he is so animated. And so Kike is a person who needs to be at all the tables. He needs to be entertaining. He needs to be out there. I have Jorge, on the other hand, who is delightful and always smiling, and probably the best hands down server I've ever had. So I take Jorge and I put him in a position where his OCD is really a plus. So I feel like with any business is recognize what your strengths are and what all the people that work for you strengths are, and make sure that they're in a position where you're capitalizing on those strengths. Don't try to put a square a round peg in a square hole, so to speak, because you're going to fail that way. And that again, as I keep saying, that's relationship building. Build relationships with the people that work for you and the people that work with you, so that you know what their strengths are and you know where they fit and you put them in the right place.
Right. That indeed is excellent advice, because it's all about getting the right people on the boat, as I've heard him say, and then making sure they're in a position to row most successfully, right? And I mean, you've given us a lot of different things to think about, and a lot of different ideas and concepts. And as we wrap up this session, I want to thank you, number one, for being here, Ms.
Thank
Laurie.
you so much.
You are a pleasure to talk with. I'm sorry.
For letting me practice my Southern accent a little bit.
Oh, yeah, you told me you could do that. Yeah, this is, I should have called this thing Local Leaders Podcast with from the South or something like that, with the Southern drawl. It's been really, fun and adventurous talking to people all over the country. And in previous lives, I had a little bit of global work experience, and that wasn't so bad with the accent. But here in the U.S., I'm definitely Southern, and you're from Texas. So what else are you gonna do?
I'm not from Texas, but I lived down there a long time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I remember the Texas roll that we talked about earlier. But we're so excited to have had you on.
Thank you.
And to have an opportunity to kind of learn from you, learn about Mallorca and kind of the challenges that you've been through, the things that you've had to overcome. I'm sure there's a lot of stories in there along the way of ways in which you handled some of those challenges. And, we may even get some viewers later that start asking us some questions related to that, whether it's financial dealings and things such as that. And if we do, I will certainly come back to you and ask for your advice on it, if you're willing to share, because, I think there's a lot of people out there that have had a hard time or have had hard times. Many of them are still trying to move forward. And maybe, looking at your story, it really gives us all hope that if you can recover from where you were 6 years ago to today, if you can do it there in that situation, as bad as it was, then, the door is open for anyone to be able to be successful and to turn a business, whether it's a business or a restaurant or any other type of business, around. So, that's a great turnaround story. And I just can't wait to get over there and have dinner with you one day and get to experience it myself.
My friend, I totally believe that the success of the people around me means success for me. So anything that I can do to help, I'm happy to do it with my humble little opinions here. If anybody can pick anything from them that are worthwhile, I'm happy to share.
Well, again, we thank you. This is Laurie Torres with Mallorca, and as I sign out today, I'm Jeff Johnson with the Local Leaders Podcast, and we hope our listeners have enjoyed listening to Laurie. She is a character, and I hope to maybe even be able to have her back for some follow-up at some point in time, because we really enjoy having you. And as for all our listeners, we hope you got some great ideas, some insights, and some new ways of thinking to maybe approach different challenges or problems that you're having. Just look at Laurie and her story, and get out of that box. Think differently, find creative ways to grow your business without necessarily having to open up new ones. There's so many things that Laurie shared with us today that can help you. So we hope you enjoyed our show today, and we look forward to having you back here real soon. Again, Jeff Johnson with the Local Leaders Podcast with Laurie. Thank you, Laurie.